Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending where you are in the world. Welcome to our special session today with Catherine Alford. She will be presenting how to set up and file a 1099 NEC form in, of course, SAP ByDesign. Just letting everyone know, everyone will be on mute for the duration of the session, just because we don't want to hear any, background noise and all that stuff. So if you have any questions or comments, just place them in the questions box or the chat box, and we will get to those as we can. I'll help Catherine with that. For next week, we have our regular scheduled Q&A cafes every Wednesday. So if you're interested, we have a Q&A cafe, netting payables, receivables in SAP Business ByDesign. And that's next Wednesday, January 27th at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So we'll see you then. That information for registration can be found on our website, or we can, you'll be getting an email at the end of the session with that registration information, as well as this recording from this session. We also have our YouTube channel that has all of our training sessions, and I'll put that one in there as well, so it's publicly available for everyone. So without further ado, I will hand it on over to Catherine, and I'll mute myself.
Okay. All right. Our lovely U.S. tax form, Form 1099 NEC. This is something that the IRS has issued for starting for tax year 2020, and basically is a replacement for the 1099 miscellaneous for only box 7. So just the non-employee compensation. So we're going to go through some of the steps today just to look at what do we need to make sure is set up for the supplier tax data for 1099s. I think most everyone should be relatively familiar with that. We're going to look at setting up the company tax arrangement, and then the process of actually creating the return, and we'll show you the Form B as well as the file that is created for the 1099 NEC. And then we'll go through the process of what we would need to do to update the withholding tax base amounts for any supplier if you realize that your tax return did not create the same amounts that would be on some of your, maybe a payment report. All right, so let's close this window and we'll get started. So this is my, let me change this real quick so you maybe can see this a little better. So this is my test tenant, just a demo tenant. So we will have some information here. So for anybody that doesn't know, we start with the supplier data in the supplier base. We'll look at, in this case, I have a handful of vendors that I have set up for this. So within your master data for your supplier, we'll check the financial data and for their tax data, and it should be their US, that they are in the US, they have either an employer identification number or a social security number, 9 digits either way. You can do with or without dashes. But down here in the withholding tax classifications, set up for the US, for the 1099 miscellaneous, because it essentially is the same process as for the 1099 miscellaneous. We'll also set up for no backup withholding, but we're going to be looking at the withholding tax income type set for box, well, in this case was box number 7 for non-employee compensation. Okay. And from the time you save this, when you process invoices and payments to that supplier, that information would be captured as part of the withholding tax base. if it is not retroactive. So if you have paid something already in the current year, it will not pick that up for the withholding tax phase. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is set up in tax management, we're going to check the tax authority. So you should have a tax authority for the federal government. So some people call it the IRS, some people call it the US Treasury. It is up to you. So I set this up for one of my companies. I put in the employer identification number for the company that I'm working on. And in the tax return arrangements, I already had information for the 1099 miscellaneous for the Form B, as well as creating the file for submission of that 1099 miscellaneous information. ByDesign does not create your Form 1096. So this is what I'd have to do to create a return and the form and file for the 1099 NEC. I'm going to add a row. I'm going to name it whatever naming convention you would normally do for your tax return arrangements. We're going to pick the return type of the non-employee compensation. Right? For the file, you will need to assign a person responsible. So if you are filing your 1096 and such, you've already applied for the IRS Fire site to do your electronic filings, you will need a person responsible. So it's going to be an employee of your company, and please make sure that they have a phone number attached to their employee record, because that goes into the file as well. All right, so down here, we're going to say this is a reporting yearly. I just say it's going to be month number 1, and then day number, well, in this case, we'll say day number 15, but this is just the day of the month that you would normally potentially do this. It does not impact due dates or anything like this. It's kind of a reminder, more or less. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close out of my tax authority. Okay. Let's see. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to create our tax return. So we're going to go tax management, and we're going to go to the withholding tax return run. Okay, and I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to say this is my company, happens to be 900, 1099 NEC for 2020. Here in my tax return arrangements, I can then find, and this, every time I've seen this now, it has gone to the bottom of the list. So just have to go find your new tax return arrangement. This is always from the beginning of the year to the end of the tax year. Okay, we're going to set to active. I always like to click on the schedule just to verify that we're going to start immediately. All right, save and close. Refresh my list of runs. So here's my run, and I'm waiting for it to tell me that my return has been created. Maybe. Sure, nobody's experienced this, having to wait on SAP for a minute. So, well, let's go. Then the next place I'm going to go, just in preparation, is tax management to the withholding tax returns. So we were just in the run, and now we're going to go look at the withholding tax returns. And what do you know? There it is. So it's in preparation at this point, but it is my 1099 NEC. So I'm going to go in here and view this one. So here's where if you would need to have your transmitter control code from the IRS in order to create your file. So that would be from your letter from the IRS. I'm going to go ahead and just look at my tax return. And so this is going to show me what it's about to put on my forms and in my file. So these are my vendors, and these are the amounts that have been reported for the non-employee compensation. And assuming most of you would probably have, there was no federal income tax withheld. So I'm going to go ahead and preview. Let me make sure you can see this. Really? Try this one more time. We'll preview again. If everybody can see this, you'll have your form NEC, 1099 NEC, with your information on your non-employee compensation. So this could be if you have your transmitter code. So if I said it was this 1, 2, 3, 4, and I said I'm just gonna leave the posting date because I'm expecting it to be today. So I can release and print. And so this will automatically send my forms for the 1099 NEC to probably your manual print task, or if you have a print queue established, it will go ahead and print them. In your attachments, you will now have the text file that can be downloaded and then uploaded to the IRS website. The only thing I get a little concerned with this, this P here, it happens to be space number 5, is usually, the IRS sees that as prior year, but for the IRS, and technically for ByDesign, it is prior year because we're running it in 2021 for 2020, but the IRS is still saying this is 2020 and that is current year. So my suggestion is to delete that P and add a space and save it, because that if that space, and it is spot number 6, and if it is blank for the IRS, that means current year. And 2020 is a current year for the IRS. Okay, and then you can just save your text file and download, save your text file and then be able to load it to the IRS Fire site. Okay. All right. So I think we're making pretty good time. You'd still run your 1099 miscellaneous tax return run for rents, gross amounts paid to attorneys. All of those still fall onto the 1099 miscellaneous. So you would still run that as the same kind of process, but there is 2 steps for that one. One for the Form B to actually send to your vendor, and another return arrangement for creating the 1099 miscellaneous file.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, and have a great weekend.